start from Lamed Vav on Bais on the bottom, Hasulam Ali, the last line. So the Gemara seems to have proven twice that our Mishnah can't be like Hananya. So let's just chazer over what's Hananya. So there's an opinion of Hananya, which, as I mentioned yesterday, is actually still in halacha. Many Rishonim going down to the Shulchan Aruch itself hold like Hananya, even though the Rabbanan are the Rav. So it's a little bit of a surprising thing that anybody would want to hold like Hananya. We'll discuss why, not today probably, because in the Gemara tomorrow and the next day, we'll get to a little bit of a proof why we would follow Hananya. Well, anyway, let's just chazer what Hananya says. So Hananya, as opposed to the Rabbanan, holds that if the food has been cooked to a half or a third, as what we called Michael Ben Droisai, like that bandit guy that's always running away from the cops, from the law, and he's in a rush, so he only cooks things a little bit. So as long as it's like that, shehiyah is no problem. You're allowed to leave it as long as you want on the fire. It's not a problem, but chazara you can't do unless it's garuv v'katum. So again, what's garuv v'katum? Just to go over the basic terminology of this whole parak. So garuv means that you shoveled away the coals, and therefore there's no gzeira of shema yechta. We're not worried that a person is going to shovel the coals and make it hotter because there are no coals. The coals are out of the way. Or katum means that they're covered up. So we learned from the discussion yesterday that katum refers to our blechs, right? Because the blech basically covers the fire, just like the ashes with the word katum. In the olden days, they didn't have a blech. So by the way, the word blech in Yiddish means a tin, something that's made out of tin. A certain very thin type of a metal. So anyway, let's go back to the Gemara. Hasulamali. So the Gemara says, why did you have to prove twice that our Mishnah doesn't go like Hananya and our Mishnah goes like the Rabbanon? So the Gemara answers, no, let's go to the Flamed Zayit. Morah says, no, it's really not. That's not what we're proving. Really, we're not talking about shehiyah. We're talking about chazara. So what does that mean? Can you put something back after it was taken off the fire because it was cooked sufficiently to eat? So the Gemara says, there are words missing in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah should read the following. If a kiru was heated up with straw or with something like straw, the stubble, we called it, like the stubble of a beard. We all have a stubble of a beard right now, right? So it's something that's small and so then you can put the food back on. Why? Because again, there's no coals to worry about. So, but begefes of eitzim. But on the other hand, if it was heated up with something that leaves, I'm just going to translate it very simply, something that leaves behind coals, lo yachsi, you can't put it back unless you get rid of the coals. You put ashes over them. But when it comes to shehiyah, leave it on the fire. That was Hananya's opinion, that you can't leave it on the fire. So l'chayra, you see that the Mishnah, even though the Mishnah didn't say this, you can figure this out. It's a diuk, what we call a deduction. You can deduce. Umahein mashin, what are you allowed to leave on the fire? So that's the machlokes that we had in the Mishnah. Beishamei, Beisil. Beishamei, chamin, avalitavshel. You can leave water because nobody wants to reheat water. It doesn't get better. The water doesn't get better. It just gets hotter. Hotter might not be mavashel. We'll have it later on the Gemara. It might just be reheating. Basil says no, you can put back either hot water or cooked food. So now this third part of the Mishnah, so this would be explained as follows. And now when we said that you can put it back, that's not that everybody holds like that. Is these two tanoim. That what? Now this is the chesur mechsur. Beishamei holds you can take it off, but you can't put it back. No, you can even put it back. So now what do we learn from over here? That since the Mishnah could be Hananya, and again, I just want to tell you one more time that I'll probably say it many more times, but not today, that the Gemara over here seems to like sort of waver if our Mishnah could be Chananya, and if our Mishnah could be Chananya, then we could paskin like Chananya. And the Shulchan Aruch, starting with the Rosh and the Tur, and the Mishnah Brura goes all the way down the line, saying that we do paskin like Chananya because of that little line in the Gemara that we just learned. Okay, now Tashma, we learned. We learned a proof from from the following brisa to what we just said from Reb Chalbo Amarav. The Reb Chalbo Amarav. I'm sorry, it goes back to Amarav that he said like this: the name of Rav Loishanu El Al Gaba. So this, which we said, is that we're going to be makel, lenient, like Hananya, is only when you put it on top of the kira, because that doesn't get very hot. Now, I was looking for a picture, but I'm going to have to give you a word picture to explain this. But you can't put it inside because inside gets very hot, and inside you're actually going to cook. So we're going to talk about this in a very, very practical way. We're going to talk about warming drawers from this Gemara. But first, let me just explain what this means. When you have a kira, that's the name of our parak, and that's the name of one of the three types of ovens. And Rabbi Feinstein, as I said, Kimat, everybody holds like Rabbi, but I think Rabbi was the first one that said this clearly, that our ovens are all like kiras, basically. So they're not like the other ones. So how did they put in a pot? They didn't have shelves. So what they had was like this. Again, I wish I could explain it, but I've actually seen pictures in some of the Mishnayos. The Gemaras don't have such great pictures. And I took a look in the art school also, doesn't have a picture. But in the Mishnayos pictures, I think even the art school Mishnayos, so they have a picture where, I'm going to try to use my hands a little bit, if you can see my hands. So there's a kira, and at the top of the kira, there is a room for two handles, and you hang the pot from the handles down, but it doesn't sit on the ground. So that's what this Gemara is talking about. Leishanu el gabi, that's only if it's on top of the kira. It's not really on the flame. It's not ala esh. But l'teicha would mean that, there was an opening in the bottom of the kira. That's how they stoked the coals. So then it's mamish on the fire. It gets very hot, and that is merzei ke bishul. So I'll tell you the chiddush now in the warming drawers. So I don't, I've been looking a little bit in some of the more modern svarim. I can't run around to the svarim stores, but very few svarim have yet dealt with warming drawers in any capacity. For instance, Rabbi Ribiyat, who wrote those wonderful 4 volumes on Hilchos Shabbos, for some reason he never got to warming drawers. I don't know, maybe I think when he published it first, they didn't have warming drawers yet. So I have to confess to you that even though I tell many people that you can put a dova gush, something that's dry, like a piece of kugel or a piece of chicken without gravy, into the warming drawer on Shabbos and take it out after it's been warmed up, I tell people that. But many poskim hold not like that. Reb Feivel Cohen holds not like that, for instance, and I believe Rabbi Heinemann, who designed a lot of these ovens, hold not like that. I happen to go with Reb David Cohen. What's Reb David Cohen Shita? He holds that since nobody yet cooks in a warming drawer, and it's called a warming drawer, Mamela, it's only for warming. So from this line in the Gemara, we just learned out that there's a difference between how hot things get. So we just said that the kira, if you put it in and it's hanging down from the top, so it doesn't get so hot, leishanu el gabo, because it's only a little bit hot. But if it's inside, it gets very, very hot, and then it's mechze kabishol. So Reb David Cohen, and I looked into it. I like his opinion, not just because it's lenient, but I happen to think that he's right. So those of you that ask me your shilas, I say that you can use the warming drawer, but not on liquids, because liquids, there is yesh bishul achabish. Remember I told you yesterday that there is in water, remember we're talking about chamin. Chamin in the Gemara means water. So water, you really can't reheat. That's, for instance, an urn. Let's say if it went off, so many places come home. We were talking yesterday about a power outage where there's a blackout and the urn went off and then it started to reheat. So then many places come home that you can't use the urn water anymore, even though you could use the oven. Why? What's the difference? There's how it says because by water or any liquid, there's bishul acha bishul. Anyway, I just want to show you a source.
Rabbi, what are these poskim that say you? These poskim that say you can't use a warming drawer, how do they say how's it enough to between that
I'll tell you why.
and putting something on top of the chaln crock pot or on top of the urn to warm up the bagels before Shabbos where everyone says they're allowed to?
I'll tell you exactly what. It's a very good question. It's a very good question. So, for instance, very few people do this, but a lot of people, if they want to put stuff into the oven, so they have an insert, then the insert, like an insert means that it's all four sides. So all four sides comprises the inside of an oven as a blech. In other words, how come we're allowed to put stuff on top of on the stove top, but not inside the oven? Because inside the oven there is no blech. So there are people I know such people. I think when I was growing up, even my parents, had an insert not just for Pesach, but they didn't have these fancy ovens. But when they wanted to put stuff in and out, they used the insert. So an insert subs as a blech. So the warming drawer has no blech. In other words, the warming drawer is what it is. So Rabbi David Cohen holds that since nobody cooks in it, it's not mechzik habishul. But since these days it's a part of your oven, you're just opening up another drawer, literally, right? It's a drawer. It's a drawer of the oven. So Rabbi Heinemann, I spoke to Rabbi Heinemann about this a couple of years ago when the warming drawers first came out. He held it was mamish usur because even though nobody cooks in the warming drawer, but it looks like the oven and it's mechzik habishul. Rabbi David Cohen Lamaisa holds that it's not mechzik habishul. That's exactly comes back to our Gemara. Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph in Masechta Shabbos. This is the warming drawer Gemara, and that depends on the heat. So I'll be very honest with you. Every new generation of warming drawer that comes up is warmer than the one before and has more settings. So if there's going to be a setting that you could mamish bake or cook, it's going to become usher on Shabbos unless you get rid of, just like, we get rid of our knobs for Shabbos with the hangover. That's the right word, but the hanging over blech, the blech that covers the the knobs. Okay, I don't want to dwell on it too much. We're going to come back to it. The warming drawer is going to come up. Rabbi said more. Now, so if you say that our Mishnah was talking about chazara, so if we're talking about putting it back, so we understand that that's why there's a difference between putting food into the kira or on top of it, because you're putting it back and you're causing it to cook. I say lishos, by the way. I know in some of the Gemaras with the Nekudas it says lashos. That's probably the correct grammatical word, but my Rebbe always used to say lishos, so I say lishos. Say eliyamet lishos tanan. But if you say that the Mishnah was talking about shehiyah, about just leaving it on, so mali toicha mali gaba. What's the difference if you're leaving it inside or outside? Neither one. You're not going to cook anything or bake anything. You're just leaving it on the fire. So the Gemara answers, no, it's not really you can't prove anything over here. Why? Cedarhurst, do you really hold that Rabbi Chalba Reishakai? Rabbi Chalba was talking about the beginning of the Mishnah. No, a Seifakoi. He was going on the Seif for the end of the Mishnah. When Beisil held that you can even put it back, then on that, Rabbi Chalba said, I'm Rabbi Chalba, Barguya, I'm a Rav. What did he say? That that you can't put it on top, but you can put it inside. So because that makes sense, because you can't put it inside the kira, because then you're going to be chazara and you're going to be putting it into a very hot place. Anyway, so now the Gemara says, Tashma, let's bring another proof. Do we hold like Chananya or not? So this is another, by the way the Gemara comes out over here, this is the source of the Mishnah Berurah and others that hold that we paskin like Chananya. Now, shtei kiras hamasimois. So Rashi says, what does the word masimois come from? It's from the word te'om, right? Shnei te'om and bevitna, twins. So these are two kiras, and they have a common wall. Now, it's very interesting that Rashi says, if you look at quick Rashi, when Rashi says Hamasimas mechubaros yachad, there's two kiros together. The kir shel cheres mafsekes beineim. Rashi says that there's an earthenware wall between them. Why does Rashi say that? Vesepis, because as we'll soon see, that even if you put it in the one that doesn't have a fire, but cheres, it transfers heat very, very easily. So therefore, we're worried that even though you put it in the one that doesn't have fire, but it's going to benefit from the fire in the other one. There's two twin kiros, right? And then we're going to see like this. So Gemara says, Achas grufa ktuma, vi achas sheni grufa ktuma. So one is as if we have a blech, and one doesn't have a blech. So this is very common today, Rabbi say. Let's say you have a short blech. You don't have a whole blech that covers your entire stovetop. And a lot of people have this. They don't want to put up so much fire, especially in the summer. So, or even Pesach, Rabbi say, it gets hot. So you put a short blech and only you cover one flame. So that's exactly the kasha over here. One is covered, or in other words, grufa means it's as if you got rid of the coals, or ketuma, you cover the coals with ish, and the other one, which by us the equivalent is a blech, and when it doesn't, when it's not grufa ketuma. So mashlo gabi grufa ketuma. So now the beginning of the Bais says that you can do shehiyah. That means you can leave the fire, you can leave the food on top of the one that's grufa uketuma, because that's what we learned before. That then it's not mechzik mabashal. You know, there's no shema yechda. You're not worried that you're gonna shovel around the coals, because there either are no coals or they're covered up and you can't see them. Then mashnal sheni grufa ketuma, but you can't put food on the other one. What do they actually leave? So you can't leave anything. So Basil says you can leave water, but you can't leave something that's still cooking. So now, okay, what if you took it off? Let's say you took something that was on the fire before Shabbos. So everybody agrees that that you can't do chazara. So Gemara says. Divrei Reb Meir. That's all that Reb Meir says. Rabbi Yehudah and Rabbi Yehudah says Beis Shammai. Now don't forget, this is one Tana explaining another Tana. Rabbi Yehudah says, what does Beis Shammai hold? Beis Shammai on mecham and avoli tafshel. You can put back water, but you can't put back a cooked food. So he says you can put everything back. You can leave. I'm sorry, shehiyah, and not put it back. You can leave it. Not that you could put it back once it was taken off. Beis Shammai says you can take it off. You can't put it back. Now comes chazara. You can even put it back. So now the Gemara is going to explain the Mishnah that we learned, our Mishnah, and the Bais. If you hold it, we're talking about shehiyah, so masnisa money Rabbi Yehudah. So you have to say our Mishnah is only Rabbi Yehudah. But if you say we're talking about chazara, masnisa money, who holds like this? Lo Rabbi Yehudah, lo Rabbi Meir. It can't be Rabbi Yehudah or Rabbi Meir. Why? If it's Rabbi Meir, so then it's a steer to Beis Shammai in one sense, and it's a steer to Beis Hillel on the other one. But Rabbi Yehudah kasha gruf v'ktuma. But if it's Rabbi Yehudah, so it's a steer, it's a contradiction to Rabbi Yehudah about gruf v'ktuma. Does it have to be shoveled and covered over or not? So therefore, what we're going to say is that we're going to say that you can leave food on the kira, and it's a stira to chananya. So now we have a kasha. Our Mishnah can't be chananya, but again, notice that many of our rishonim are not going to hold like this clause. The rishonim that we follow, most of us, because we follow Reb Moshe Feinstein, etc., hold that we do paskin like chananya. So we said no. We're talking about even chazar that you could put it back. Rabbi Yehudah agrees and disagrees. Where does he hold like Rabbi Yehudah? So that about hot water and cooked food. So he says that you can take off and you can put it back on Shabbos itself. Where does Rabbi Yehudah disagree? Our Tana holds that you can only leave it there, even though you didn't take off any of the coals. Rabbi Yehudah holds nami, that it's the same thing, that even if it's just to leave it on the fire, right? You can only leave it on the fire even if you put it up Erev Shabbos, but you can't leave it on the fire on Shabbos, only if you got rid of the coals, because otherwise we're worried, Shema Yechta, that you might shovel the coals. So now the Gemara says, okay, now this is going to be a new shaila, but this is very negeya halacha l'maisa by us today. So what about, can you put, and I mentioned it before, let me see if everybody chaps what I'm talking about. So obviously we're going to have to make a little bit of an analogy from the ancient ovens to our ovens. I have an old ancient oven also, but not that ancient, right? It's not a kira. So can you put a food along the side of the oven, right? Which would be by us, l'mashal, on top of the stove. Let's say you have a stove top, and right after that starts your counters. Now we've all all been, we all made Pesach, Baruch Hashem, under difficult conditions. And right after, let's say you have one of those kitchens where right after the stovetop is finished, there's a countertop that starts. And a lot of people that ask the shiur, for instance, let's say they have a slab of granite, and you're going to really put down a hot you're going to put a hot frying pan or a hot pot on the granite or other things. So can you kasher it or not? So the halacha is if it's a slab of rock, of stone, you can kasher it. Boiling hot water, hagala, or what we call irui, right? You have to pour from a kli risha. We all did that a couple of days ago if we had those kind of countertops. But what if you put something right next to the fire, but it's not on the blech, and it's not on the stovetop? That's exactly this Gemara, right? You with me? Now, lismach, can you put it right next to the kira, and it's not gar v'kadum? What do we mean by that? There's no blech, right? So let's say you didn't need a blech. Why? Because you were only talking about when Shabbos comes. You left it on Shabbos, on Erev Shabbos rather, you left it on the fire as long as you could. Then you took it off the fire, you put it on your countertop. The fire is still on the stovetop, and you want your it was like some heat traveling from the stovetop to or by the way, it could be from the oven also, which is another story. There's a lower counter, but the fire, the heat from the fire is traveling not through a blech. So the shaila is like this. So do we say that do we say that inside and on top they're both asur because that's derech bishul? That's how people cook. Avlisma b'shapidami. But if you put it next to it, like on the countertop, it's mutter. Or maybe it doesn't matter if it's on top or alongside. So Gemara says Tashma. We'll bring a proof from a Bais. What does the Bais say? Shtei kiras hamasimos. That's again the two. This is the case that we just had. The two twin kiras. Achas gufim ktuma v'achas and gufim ktuma. One of the kirais, you got rid of all the ashes, or not all the ashes. I'm sorry, all of the coals with covering the ashes or shoveling them off. That's called shoveling. It's called gufim ktuma, covering it with the ashes. Bayasa would mean put on a blech. So mashal gabi kufa, so you can leave it on top of the one that's gar v'kadzum. The afagav the kostolik lehav l'meidach. So even though there is some heat that's coming from the kira that is not covered, right? Because there's one of them that's not covered, but you're putting it on either the one that is covered. Modern kitchen, you put it on the countertop. So what does it say over there? So you see that you could put a pot right next to the one that's not garav v'katum, even though it's getting some heat. So the Gemara says no. So now I think you'll be very happy that I made you a little word picture of how the kira works. And the kira, you had the pots hanging. I managed to have a picture someplace. If I can dig it up, I don't have a way of showing it to you so well. That's the problem. We tried with the pictures, didn't go so well. But I remember where the picture is in one of the Mishnayos. So you have, if you can imagine, the kira, it's medallia. It's hanging down, and there's airspace. So now what does Gemara say? The medallia shol ba'avira. So since there's air in it, so it doesn't get very hot because it's being cooled by the airspace. So therefore, we're not worried about hanging it up on top. But if you're putting it right next to the kira, where the heat is coming from the wall of the oven itself, not the top, so then maybe it's getting too hot. So Gemara says Tashma. So there was no proof from there. So Tashma, we're going to bring another proof. The Amar of Safra, Rav Safra said, name Rav Chia, Katma v'nislabsa. Now this is where I mentioned yesterday. This is where we're going to talk about in a moment. If the blech fell off, this is the case where Reb Moshe Feinstein cites our Gemara and Chelik Dalit Igros Moshe. Katma v'nislabsa. So they didn't have blechs in the time of the Gemara, but what did they have? They shoved aside either the coals. That was called garuf, but now we're talking about katum. Katum means you covered over the coals with some ash, and all of a sudden one of the coals came back to life. It flared up, right? Now what's the halacha? So so you could put some food over there next to the kira, and before Shabbos, and you'll leave it over there. You can take off from it, you can put back on it. It's not really on the fire. So you see that if you're putting food alongside the kira, so the only time that you can do it is if you covered up the coals. But if you didn't cover up the coals, you can't do it. So Gemara says, according to you, when it said you can take off, so so that would seem to be only if you covered up the coals with ashes. So l'chayra, that can't be. Why? Because the Gemara is explaining now that if you covered up the kira with ashes, so then it's going to be mutter. So it's mashma that if you didn't do it, so then it's usher. So Gemara says no. Elatana nightly mishum achzirun. Gemara says no. When we talk about taking off, it was because you're gonna put it back. So why does it say over there you're putting it right next to it? Because you are planning actually to put it back into or onto the kira. So he didn't really mean that you can only put it next to it if there's a gora for katum. Gemara says hachi hashda. What kind of a comparison is this? So over there, the case was you took it off and you put it back in the same place. So, but Tana, so that's why Rabbi said you can take it off because you're putting it back in the same way that you took it off. You're putting food next to it, and then when you're putting it up on top, in other words, you took it out of the kira and then you're putting it up on top. So over there, Rabbi didn't have to say anything that this is like putting it next to the kira. Now the Gemara says, "My havila." What was lamaisa the maskana? What was the conclusion? Gemara says, "Tashma." We'll bring another proof. Kira shesiku. I'll show you the right when we go to Amud Bais. I'm going to show you the Reb Moshe so we don't lose track of it. Reb Moshe's shot in this Gemara. So Gemara says, "My havila." What was the conclusion? Toshma. So Gemara says, "Kira shesiku begefus of eitzim." If you had the worst kind of a kira, which is the one that leaves behind coals, so simchala. So you can put food right next to it. They mekaimin, but you can't really leave the food on top of it. Elam can't grow for ktuma unless you get rid of the coals, because it had coals, and this kind of fuel makes coals. Now gechamim she'amamu. But what if you had the coals that died down? Right, that's like taking the we'll talk about the blech in a minute. Or you put down some flax on it. So that's like a bed of flax. It's as if you use the flax just, so then that's okay. So what do we learn from over here? You're only allowed to you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to put food on top of the kira, even if it wasn't gora v'katum. So Gemara brings a proof. So let's just finish up the bottom so we can go to Amud Bais, and then I want to just learn a shtickle of Igros Moshe. Katma v'hurara. Now this is going to be the case of the exact case of our blech that he says like this: cut me, you covered over the ashes. You covered over, the coals with the ashes, and then it flared up. So we said mashnol chamin. So you can use it if you had hot water, then you can leave it there. Because they're completely hot. The water is hot. Or a food, like for instance, you have a cholent, and the cholent is completely edible. So Gemara says, Shema Mino, let's just do Amud Bais, the first line. Shema Mino, what do we see from here? Mitstamek v'yafolo muter. So I mentioned this term yesterday. There's two terms. Mitstamek v'yafolo means that you have a food that the more heat it hits it, like most cholents, the better it gets. Now, obviously, at some point it burns, but a cholent, even if it's edible already, more than Michael Bendray say, not a third, not a half, 3/4, or maybe it's completely edible. Okay, let's say, and right now you have a shaila if you're allowed to leave it on the fire or even to put it back. So we said that even mitztamek v'yafaloi, that even if it's going to get better, right, mutter, right? So this is the chiddush, that it's still mutter to leave it, even if it's not gar v'katum. So the Gemara says, no, that's not the case. Shiny hacha, the kitma over here, because when he got rid of the coals, so even though later on it flared up, but it's clear that he didn't really want the coals anymore. Despite everything that he did to indicate that he's finished cooking and baking this thing, but it flared up. So I just want to take 1 minute, because then we'll lose track of the Reb Moshe. So I started to mention this yesterday. Nislab Soha Eish. So Reb Moshe writes in Orach Chaim Chelek Daled Siman Ayin Daled, Im yesh l'damas nefila hakisui lekitma v'huva rav b'sug yasenu. So somebody, a Rav, asked Reb Moshe, is the blech falling off and then putting it back? So is it just like this Gemara? Shemut l'achza kader filu b'Shabbos, that you could put it back up on Shabbos. And then he was also asked, Ma'u tamadin shemut l'achza b'kitma v'huvara. How come? So remember, we were just talking about that one of the worst things on Shabbos is mechze kabishul. When you put something like, for instance, all the people that hold that a warming drawer is asur. So why do they hold it asur? Because mechze kabishul. It looks like you're cooking it, even though if somebody would look closely, they'll see you open the warming drawer. You didn't open the oven door, but everybody else, Rabbi Heinemann, Reb Feitman Cohen, Reb Moshe didn't rule on warming drawers, so I don't know what he would have held. But Reb David Cohen holds this mutter because it's not mechze kabishul. So Reb Moshe was asked about how come you're allowed to put things back when the blech fell off. It says Mistabish Atam Shetiba Sugisem Bekitna V'Huvra Mishum Shagam Acha Shuvra Adan Yesh K'tzas Heker Mektimas Shakota. Because in our Gemara, there's still a little bit of a heker. In other words, you shoved aside the coals. So actually Chadchila ain't die beheker, because normally it's not enough. V'tzorach L'chasas is Kol HaGecholim Dafka. You have to cover all the coals. So Rabbi Moshe says Mikom Mokom Acha Shakotam is Kula V'Huvra Gecholim L'Nes L'Achs. It's no problem. Chimish Gila Daitoi She'ain Tzorach as Gecholim. He made clear. Gila Daita means he made obvious that he doesn't want these coals. So Moshe says, but like I said the other day, let's say only half the blech fell off, part of the blech fell off, or in fact, you have two blechs, one fell off and one didn't. So Moshe says you could put back the who quotes from his Rabbi, Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, on almost every page, writes, you can't put back the pot. I says, see, in other words, Reb Moshe holds that our Gemara is just like the blech. Reb Shlomo Zalman says it's usus. He's got to answer, why is our Gemara different than the blech falling off? So he says like this. So he says, since the Rif and the Rambam and the Tur all left out this halacha, so it's a raya that they don't hold like it. So now we go back to Reb Moshe, back and forth, to prove what does Reb Moshe Feinstein hold. But Reb Shlomo Zalman makes a very good point, as the Shmir Shabbos Kolchasa proves. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara. The Gemara says, I think I stopped by Shiny Ocha de Kotma. So Gemara says Ihachi, right? Second line. So Ihachi, so Gemara says, Milo Memra. So if this is so obvious, so why did he have to say it? The Gemara says, no, we need the case of that when the fire in the Kira flared up. Now the same, I would have thought so since the fire flared up, so we would say that it's not Garu Fakatum. So Gemara says Kamashalon, that it's still Garu Fakatum, and it's okay. That's really the Reb Moshe brings a right from this line also. Now let's go further. Amar Rabba Barbachan Amar Rabbi Yochanan Katma V'Huvara. Let's say you covered up all the little coals with the ashes. So mashin oleo chamin shuchim kol tzarkan. So you're allowed to leave all the water that cooked up the tafshil shebishul kol tzarkai, or a cooked food that, like for instance, the cholent that is completely finished. Va'afil gecholim shel roisim. So even if you have coals of roisim. Now, what's coals of roisim? So Rashi explains over here that since these are very, very hot and they're hard to extinguish, so other coals, so the fire goes out after a little while. So the chiddush over here was that even these coals that flared up and they're going to stay that way, so it's still okay, because since the guy did garuf katum in the beginning, he made clear that he's not interested in having coals. Now the Gemara wants to see what Rabbi Yochanan means. So you see from over here, even if you have a food that gets better and better, the hotter it gets, we're still not worried because it was edible completely. Gemara says, no, shiny hacha, the katma. Over here it's different. Why? Because since he did giruf v'kitum, right? He did one of those things. So as long as he did that, he made clear that he's happy with it. So again, it's obvious. We need the fire flaring up. So Morah says, wasn't these two things the same thing, right? So what did Rabbi Yochanan eat Rabbi Shia? The Morah says, so his chiddush was these type of roisim wood that they make a very big fire. Now the Gemara says, let's say you have the bad type of a kira. For Shabbos, it's a bad kind because it lives behind coals. So Rabbi Yochanan says a big chiddush. He says, shehiyah, you can leave it even though it's not completely cooked and it's not completely heated up. The water's not heated up. Okay, but once you took it off the fire, so you then can't put it back until you either got rid of the coals or you cover them up. So what does Rabbi Yochanan hold? So obviously Rabbi Yochanan holds that our Mishnah was talking about not chazara, avolishos, but when it comes to leaving it on the fire, just as to leave it. So what's the halacha? So leaving it on the fire. So you can leave it on the fire even though it's not garav v'katum. And that's Hananiah's opinion, right? So we're following now Hananiah. So again, the Shulchan Aruch quotes this, so does the Bir Halacha of the Mishnah Berurah, that we follow Hananiah. Now again, not everybody holds like that, but some Rishonim don't. Rashi and Tosfos hold not like that. Okay, now. Actually, Rashi and Tosfos at the end, I'm sorry, when came around, they said that we passed like Hananiah. Now, Amar Rava said, Tavai Tinanu. We learned already both of these shittas of Rav Sheshis and the Mishnah. Lishes Tanina, when did we learn that you can leave it on the fire? Because it said in the Mishnah, you can't put bread into an oven right before Shabbos, or you can't put like a little piece of cake on coals or like a cookie, unless you have enough time before Shabbos for it to develop a crust. So so it seems that as long as it developed a crust, you can leave it on the fire, even though it's going to still improve. It wasn't cooked completely or baked completely yet. So Morah says, so you see that's like Hananiah. What about that was for Shehiyah? What about to put back lahachza nami tinina? We also learned a raya from our Mishnah that you can put it back. Because it says in the Mishnah, you can put it back. So until now we said that even Beis Hillel doesn't hold that you can put it back unless it's garav v'katum. But if it's not garav v'katum, so you see that Rav Sheshis holds that in both of the shittas we pass like Hananiah. Rav Sheshis Nami. So anyway, so that's a kash l'chayra. That why do Rav Sheshis have to say it? It wasn't obvious. We learned it before. But so no, Rav Sheshis Nami. Do you can the masnisim kamashlan? Rav Sheshis wants to show us that we can figure this out from our Mishnah. Why? So Morah says, Amar of Shmuel bar Yehudah Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Kira shisikua, the gefes of eitzim. So again, let's say you have a kira and it's heated up with things that leave behind coals. Mashnul tafshel bishul kol tzarka v'chametzuchamu. You call tzarka, and as long as the water is already water is cooked up, it was mavushal, and the food is edible completely. So then you can leave it over there. Even though it could get better, it's a chunk. So now the Gemara is going to say, so let's see who holds like this. So he said to him like this. This is Rav Shmuel, that they both hold mitztamik v'yofulei asur. They hold that if a food can get better, so you got to take it off of the fire before Shabbos. So that's a steer to what you just said. So Amalei, so Rav Yehudah said, didn't I know that? That's famous. Of course I know that, but I'm not worried about that. How did I know it? Rav Yosef, Rav Yehudah, Shmuel, mitztamik v'yofulei asur. So generally, we all know that if the food can get better, you got to take it off the fire before Shabbos, or you have to have a blech. Ki kamina lo, Rabbi Yochanan kamina lo. But I was saying this according to Rabbi Yochanan. I don't hold like that. Now, Amalei Ravuk from Imesha Rav Ashi, he said, Atondu Mekarvisul Rav Shmuel, you who live in Bavel, near where Rav Shmuel lived. Now, apparently, Rav Shmuel had passed away long ago. Avidu Rav Shmuel, you have to follow Rav Shmuel, and you can't put mitztamik v'yafula. You can't leave it on the fire unless it's gar v'katum. Anan, but we're not mechuyev to follow Rav Shmuel. Anan. Navid to Rabbi Yochanan. We will follow like Rabbi Yochanan. So I'll just tell you where this comes up today, Rabbi say. We mentioned before a machlekes, Reb Moshe Feinstein and Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, two giants of halacha. So who do you follow? It's very pashut. In the United States, we follow Reb Moshe, and Eretz Yisrael, we follow Reb Shlomo Zalman. The only time where that becomes a problem is when there's a machlekes, the two brothers-in-law, the two mechatanim, Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and Reb Elyashiv. Not always, but we just had the other one the other day where Rabbi Yashiv is Machmed, that's the usual, and Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was Mekel. So then what do you do? Then it gets a little bit complicated. You know, who are you closer to? Who do you follow? You know, et cetera, because they're both Eretz Yisrael. Okay? Now, same thing is why, by the way, with Bnei Brak. You know, in Bnei Brak is Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and Reb Chaim, interestingly, is a son-in-law of Reb Elyashiv, and they had many machlokes and also. So people used to say, if you live in Bnei Brak, you got to follow Reb Chaim. If you live in Yerushalayim, you follow Reb Elyashiv. So that's what this Gemara is saying, that you do where you live. Okay, let's go a bit further. Abai said to Rav Yosef like this. He asked him this as a shaila, even though we just had this shaila and we resolved it. Mahu lishois, what about, can you leave food on the fire when you didn't do garu fakatum? Amalei, so Rav Yosef said, what do you mean? Rabbi Yehudah mashalev achol. Rabbi Yehudah, they always leave him food on a kira that was not garu fakatum, and he eats it. So obviously he holds its motor. Amalei bar mined Rabbi Yehudah. We can't really extrapolate anything from Rabbi Yehudah. Why? Because Rabbi Yehudah was a very, very old person already at this time. The chivda mesukenu, and he was in great sakana. So the emes says we could have cooked fish for Rabbi Yehudah even on Shabbos. So, but like this, we're just a little bit makel about not making it gar v'katam. You didn't need a blech. So it says v'liv alach mai. So now he said, what about regular people who are not so sick? Lo'aleinu baruch Hashem. You know, he's sick, but what about the rest of the healthy people? Can you leave food when it's not gar v'katam? Amalei, he said the surah mashu. In surah they do leave it even if it's not gar v'katam. How do we know that? The Rav Nachman Yitzchak Morah the Uvda. He was the one that came from surah, and he was very, very frum. In other words, you can count on him to do the right thing. And they would leave food for him, and he wasn't sick or anything. The Gemara brings another ma'aser. Rav Ashi said, I was standing by Rav Huna on Shabbos, and I saw they left him some fish that was, it's called like hash, you know, like a fish that was on top of a kira, and it still was getting better and better, and it was edible, but it was getting better and better, and it was not gar v'katam, and he ate it, right? So he says, he ate it. So he said, but I didn't know why he ate it. Did he hold that even though it's getting better and better, but since it's edible, you can eat it? Or or maybe he held, no, it's not getting better and better, because since it has flour, so flour gets worse and worse the more heat you apply to it. So he said he didn't know why he held it was mutter. Where it says, if it's going to get worse and worse, so then it's asum it's stomach varaloi mutter. But if it's going to if it's going to get better v'yafaloi, so then it's asur, because then we're afraid you're going to shove the coals or it's going to look like you're cooking. It's stomach varaloi. But if it's going to get worse and worse, so we're not worried that anybody's going to stoke the coals, because nobody's going to make it worse. So what's the general rule? Anything that has flour, we know it's going to get worse, and it's going to condense out. The flour is going to become unedible. Unless it's turnips. Even though turnips, sometimes they used to make the dish of turnips with some flour, but over there, it was mitztamik v'yofel. It got better and better. But that's only if it has meat. But if it doesn't have meat, then it gets worse. And even if it has meat, it's only if you don't need more for the guests. But if you need more for the guests, so then we're considering it as if it gets worse and worse, because what you want to be able to give is a large portion. And the more that it, mitztamik means it shrinks. So the more it shrinks, so your guests are not going to get a big shtickle of flesh. So lavda daisa v'tamra, the Gemara says mitztamik v'ralahem. If it's figs or cereal or dates, so these things, they as they shrink, they get harder and harder, and they become not so edible. So we're going to stop over here by the last line, the boy minay Reb Chia. We stop by mitztamik v'ralahem. So I just wanted to go one more shtickle of halacha l'maisa over here. So the question is about cooking for a chayla. So we said that for a chayla it's mutter. So I'm going to show you a very interesting chiddush. I mentioned this yesterday, but I didn't have a chance to learn it inside. If you don't mind, we'll just learn it inside for a second. So the Rogatchover, in his Sofnas Paneach, he writes like this. He says, Mikan Heter, and by the way, he's a notorious machmer. He was not always machmer. Obviously, he was mekel, but he was machmer much more than he was mekel. He was much stricter than almost anybody else around. And in fact, in the city of Dvinsk, where he lived, so he was generally machmer, and the other gadol, who was the Or Sameach, was usually mekel when the Rogatchover was machmer. But over here was very mekel. He said, Lomen Mikan Heter tzor chodesh b'sakana b'chol shvus. He says that if you have to do something for somebody that's in a sakana, and remember we had the shaila in the very beginning of, even before this parak, in the last parak about Memad Likim, let's say that there's somebody's in a sakana. Nebuch, we had today a lot of chaylim. I couldn't even, talk today for a little while over Shabbos, and I mean it's Cholamoid now also. I don't want to mention it. Things are getting better, Rabbi, so we're flattening the curve, but a lot of people that were very sick, Taka passed away over the first days, and we probably all know somebody, but I'm telling you, I got the statistics very, very frightening. Although in general it's getting better. So the question was, what can we do for such a chayla that's in a sakana? So the Rogatchover holds, as do some others, you can do whatever you have to do to make the person comfortable. So he brings a raya from over here for this thing by Rabbi Yehudah. So he says. He gives an example. It's unbelievable. He writes that there was a person that had a lung disease. He should go to the forest. Gamak. You know what a gamak is? Is a hammock, right? You can look it up. Gimel Aleph Mem Aleph Kuf. That's a hammock. So he explains what a hammock is, and if you want to, by the way, use a hammock on Shabbos, so what you have to do is like this: you have to put in some pegs before Shabbos, obviously not on Shabbos, and then the rope of the hammock should not be tied around the tree itself, because then you can't do it. Has to be a separation. So the question over here was, can this fellow be put into a hammock because it's good for, it's not going to cure him, and not having it will not kill him, but on the other hand, he'll be very comfortable in a hammock. So the Rogatchover said, okay, the third cholim is sukin. He says, so he held like this shita, which is the Magen Avram, that you can do whatever is necessary for the person. So unfortunately, we've had a lot of these shilas in the last couple of days, and many, including to whatever extent people asked me. So I said you can do whatever is needed for the chayla, and because just him feeling a little bit better, or she feeling a little bit better, that could save their lives. But even if not, so it's called hutra. There's no Shabbos for such a person. The Rebbe should help everybody that needs it, should have a refuah shalema.